They didn't just try to steal her money or her house, they tried to steal her mind, her legacy, piece by painstaking piece, erasing her from her own life's work, while smiling to her face, pretending to care, with calculated, chilling precision. It's horrifying, isn't it, the idea that the people closest, the ones who share your blood, could be the architects of your destruction. I'm Victoria, and you found the place where we share stories that, well, they stick with you, the kind that burrow under your skin, the kind that make you question everything, especially who you trust, the shadows in familiar faces. Today's story, it's definitely one of those. It comes from a woman I'll call Agnes, Professor Agnes Marlowe, a client, someone whose quiet dignity and fierce intellect left a profound mark on me. I came to admire her deeply, not just for the unimaginable violation she endured, but for the sheer brilliance and cold fury of how she fought back. Agnes, she's a retired historian, a leading scholar in her field, her specialty, propaganda, misinformation, the psychological tactics used by regimes and individuals throughout history to manipulate populations, control narratives, break spirits. She spent a lifetime dissecting the mechanics of deception. Seemed quiet when you first met her, reserved, studious, perhaps even carrying the gentle frailty that age can sometimes suggest, but underneath that calm surface, steel, pure, sharpened Damascus steel, tempered by decades of rigorous intellectual battles in the archives. What happened to her, orchestrated by her own nephew, Julian, her late sister's only child, and his ambitious girlfriend, Serafina, it's a terrifying masterclass in modern manipulation, digital gaslighting, emotional exploitation, and utter predatory ruthlessness. They didn't just want her money, though they certainly wanted that. They aimed to strip her bare, financially, yes, but also intellectually, personally, emotionally, to seize control of everything she was, everything she had painstakingly built over a lifetime, her reputation, her unpublished magnum opus, her priceless collection, her very sanity. But they underestimated Agnes. Terribly, fatally, they mistook quiet intellect for weakness, scholarly reserve for naive vulnerability. They forgot what she studied, what she knew. They forgot that understanding the poison often means understanding the antidote, or how to administer a different kind of poison altogether. You absolutely need to hear how she turned their own sophisticated tactics against them, how she unleashed a lifetime of specialized knowledge, fueled by a righteous, ice-cold fury that burned hotter than any superficial charm. You won't believe the precision, the devastating, surgical impact of her counter-offensive. It's almost unnerving. So pause whatever else you're doing, find that subscribe button right now, click it, make sure you don't miss a single second of this unfolding drama. It's more than just a story. It's a lesson, etched in betrayal, and it's a chilling warning about the monsters who sometimes wear familiar faces. Now let Agnes tell you, in her own words, how the subtle infiltration began, the creeping dread, and how she ultimately brought their carefully constructed world crashing down around them, burying them in the rubble. It started subtly, insidiously, almost kindly, or so I allowed myself to believe. Julian, my late sister Clara's son, he always seemed, adrift, possessed of a certain charm undeniably, quick with a smile, a compliment, but lacking substance, direction. It always felt like he was searching for an angle. After Clara passed, I felt a duty, a connection. When he started visiting more often, bringing Serafina, I was initially pleased, perhaps relieved. My husband Arthur had been gone 5 years. The house felt cavernous sometimes, filled only with books and echoes. The silence could be profound. Serafina was polished, highly intelligent, clearly ambitious, working on her PhD in history coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally. She expressed such keen interest in my work, my specific research methodologies, my extensive private collection of historical documents, particularly the rare materials related to psychological warfare, propaganda posters from obscure regimes, classified wartime communications, first-hand accounts of espionage. Things not easily found elsewhere. They'd bring groceries, organic, expensive things I wouldn't buy myself, help with chores I hadn't asked them to do, replacing light bulbs, tidying the garden, small gestures, seemingly thoughtful, always accompanied by little comments, observations about my memory. "Aunt Agnes, are you sure you locked the back door last night? I found it unlatched this morning," Julian might say, tilting his head with that practiced look of gentle concern. Easy mistake to make. "Did you forget about lunch with Mrs. Gable, Agnes?" Serafina would ask softly, her hand resting briefly on my arm. She called a little worried. "Don't fret, I rescheduled it for you. You've got so much on your mind." Except I hadn't forgotten. I distinctly remembered Mrs. Gable cancelling her asterisk self, flew, and I always locked the back door, double-checked it, a habit ingrained from years of living alone. Trivial things, really, or so they framed them, isolated incidents, easy to dismiss, except they started accumulating, forming a pattern I recognized from my studies, the drip, drip, drip of doubt. "Aunt Agnes, are you quite sure you told me we were meeting Professor Finch today?" Julian would ask later, brows furrowed, "because I cleared my whole afternoon. Maybe you just thought about telling me. It happens." Serafina would chime in, smooth as silk, her voice laced with faux sympathy. "We worry, Agnes, truly. You've worked so incredibly hard your entire life. Maybe it's just time to relax a bit. Let us help manage things, just the stressful bits, the administrative headaches." Stressful bits, like my unpublished manuscript, my life's work, a multi-volume analysis tracing the evolution of state-sponsored manipulation techniques from ancient Rome to the digital age, years of synthesis, unique insights, or my collection, meticulously curated over 40 years, priceless to scholars, a target for the unscrupulous. They started helping organize my study, my sanctuary, my meticulously ordered chaos. Suddenly my files were being rearranged, my research notes collated, my desk tidied. "Just trying to make things easier for you, Auntie," Julian would say brightly, holding up a folder, putting all your Cold War notes together. I felt a distinct flicker of unease, a professional hazard perhaps. My studies made me hyper-aware of patterns, of subtle infiltrations, but this was Julian, Clara's boy. Arthur had always had a soft spot for him despite his flaws. Surely I was being overly suspicious, paranoid. Then small, specific items began to disappear from my collection, not the most valuable pieces initially, but significant ones, a rare anarchist pamphlet from Weimar, Germany, a signed letter from a key figure in the OSS, things I knew the exact location of, things catalogued in my mind, if not yet fully digitized. When I noticed, voice carefully neutral, Julian would look utterly baffled. "Are you absolutely sure it was in that specific folio, Aunt Agnes? Gosh, maybe you moved it during your last research deep dive. You know how things can get misplaced when you're focused." Serafina would nod sympathetically, her eyes wide with apparent concern. "It's so easy to do. Happens to me all the time with my own notes. Please don't worry yourself into a state over it. It'll turn up." They were gaslighting me, systematically, methodically, just like the historical campaigns I'd documented, making me doubt my own memory, my own meticulous organizational system, my own competence, planting seeds of confusion, watering them with false concern. They suggested helping with my finances. "Just to ease the burden," Serafina murmured one afternoon, spreading bank statements on the kitchen table. "Taxes are getting so complicated." They'd show me online summaries, numbers that seemed off, lower than expected, but they'd quickly click away, navigate to different screens. "Oh, that's just pending transactions, market fluctuations, really complicated stuff. Honestly, Agnes, let us handle the day-to-day. We can set up clearer reports for you." They started bringing documents to sign, often late in the evening, when I was tired, Just updates for the house insurance, auntie, Julian would say casually, flipping pages quickly, a pen already in his hand, pointing to where I needed to initial. Standard renewals. My eyesight wasn't what it used to be, especially with fine print. I trusted him. Or rather, I trusted the memory of the boy he used to be, the connection to my sister. I felt increasingly isolated, a chilling, creeping sense of enclosure. They subtly discouraged visits from old friends, long-time colleagues. Professor Finch seems to tire you out so much these days, Agnes, Seraphina observed one evening after Alastair had left. He had seemed concerned about me, asking pointed questions about Julian's constant presence. Maybe fewer visits for a little while, just until you're feeling more rested. They offered to handle my mail, sorting out the junk, Julian called it, screening my phone calls, filtering out those annoying telemarketers, Seraphina explained smoothly. Always there, always helpful, always present, always watching. My world, carefully constructed over decades, was shrinking. My confidence, painstakingly built on academic rigor and personal integrity, was eroding, replaced by a creeping fog of self-doubt, confusion, fear, orchestrated by them, just as described in the manuals I studied. They began mentioning power of attorney, delicately at first, then more persistently. It's just a precaution, Aunt Agnes, Julian said, his voice earnest, purely practical, in case you ever got suddenly sick, like that bout of flu last winter, so we could make sure your bills are paid, that you're taken care of, exactly as you'd wish, following your instructions. Their voices dripped with false sincerity, a poisonous sweetness. I hesitated. Something felt deeply, fundamentally wrong. A cold dread settled in my stomach, pooling like ice. This wasn't care, this wasn't familial concern, this was control, this was acquisition. But I was tired, so tired, confused, doubting my own judgment, my own perceptions, just as they intended. Was I imagining things? Was I becoming the forgetful old woman they described? The real horror, the moment the fog evaporated, replaced by blinding, terrifying clarity, began when I overheard them. Late one night, sleep had become increasingly elusive, my mind restless, churning. I walked quietly down the hallway, intending to make some chamomile tea, past my study door. It was slightly ajar, their voices, hushed, urgent, careless in the late hour. Julian was talking, a low murmur. The manuscript digitization is almost complete. Seraphina, you need to start seeding key phrases and concepts from the later chapters into your dissertation proposal now. We need to establish prior academic claim, time-stamped. Seraphina's voice, sharp, brittle with excitement, no trace of the soft concern she used with me. Perfect, and the incompetence evaluation. Have you spoken to Dr. Evans again? He seems completely sympathetic. He totally believes our narrative about her cognitive decline, said he sees it all the time. The family history doesn't help her case either. A pause. Once that's in place, the collection will effectively be ours to manage. We can start liquidating the less traceable pieces immediately. Fund our future, a real future. Our future, built on the deliberate, systematic ruins of my life, my mind, my reputation, my legacy. They weren't just tidying up my research, they were cataloguing it, digitizing it, stealing it, planning to publish my magnum opus, my unique synthesis of decades of work, under their names, or worse, carve it up, sell off the concepts piecemeal, destroying the coherence, the integrity of my life's work. They weren't just helping with finances, they were siphoning funds, diverting dividends, setting up new accounts, forging my signature on those insurance updates, the documents I'd signed, blank checks on my life, my assets, my autonomy, giving them access, control. And the talk of incompetence, the constant harping on my forgetfulness, it wasn't loving concern, it was a calculated strategy, a plan to have me legally declared incapable, mentally unfit, to silence any potential objections, to potentially institutionalize me if I became inconvenient, giving them complete, unchallengeable control over everything, my research, my irreplaceable collection, my money, my freedom, my life. They were systematically dismantling me, erasing Professor Agnes Marlowe, the respected historian, the independent woman, replacing her image with their carefully crafted portrait of a confused, incompetent old lady, ripe for exploitation, a resource to be drained, then discarded. The shock was like ice water poured directly into my veins, numbing, suffocating, followed by fury, a cold, deep, Vesuvius-like burning rage I hadn't felt in years, not since uncovering evidence of wartime betrayals hidden in dusty, classified archives. But this was intimate, personal, this was family. This was the ultimate, unforgivable violation, betraying not just trust but blood, my sister's memory. They thought I was frail, forgetful, easily manipulated, worn down by age and grief. They saw a doddering old woman, a mark, an obstacle to their ambition. They forgot who I was, what I knew, what I had spent my entire professional life studying, analyzing, understanding. The art of the lie, the mechanics of deception, the strategies of psychological warfare, the patterns of infiltration and subversion, the histories of collaborators and resistors. They had declared war on my mind, my legacy, my very existence. Fine, war it would be. But I wouldn't fight it on their terms, caught in their web of lies and manipulations. Oh no, I would fight it on mine, from the shadows they thought I inhabited, using the very weapons they tried to turn against me, knowledge, strategy, historical precedent, and a ruthlessness forged in the study of tyrants, a ruthlessness they couldn't possibly comprehend. The turning point, the precise moment sheer white-hot rage solidified into icy strategic resolve, was small, almost pathetic in its pettiness, but utterly, terrifyingly revealing. A few days after overhearing them, I needed to test the waters. To confirm the depth of their deception to my face, I confronted Julian, calmly, maintaining the slightly vague persona they expected, about a specific missing manuscript page, a single page, but a crucial one, containing a diagram I'd sketched, linking ancient Roman propaganda techniques to strategies used in the early Soviet Union, something unique, something I knew. Hadn't been misplaced, I'd consulted it only days before. He didn't even blink, he feigned confusion, then that awful, condescending pity washed over his face. Aunt Agnes, darling, we talked about this. Remember, last week you were worried about spilling your tea on it. You specifically asked me to take it. Put it somewhere safe for you, in the blue archival box. He smiled, that awful, patronizing, gentle smile, the one designed to reassure and simultaneously dismiss. He wasn't just lying, he was actively rewriting my reality, to my face, using a fabricated memory, a plausible scenario he'd likely planted himself weeks ago during one of their tidying sessions, expecting me to absorb it, doubt myself, accept his version. That smile, that condescending, dismissive, utterly false smile, it shattered the last vestiges of my hesitation, my grief for the nephew I thought I knew, my lingering sense of familial obligation. In that precise moment, he wasn't family, he wasn't Clara's son, he was the enemy, a hostile agent operating within my own home, and Serafina, his willing, eager accomplice. They saw me not as a person, but as an obstacle, a resource to be drained, exploited, and then neatly discarded, their future built upon my erasure. My mind, honed by decades of analyzing complex layers of deception, political maneuvering, intelligence operations, snapped into focus, like a high-resolution lens clicking into place, the fog of their gaslighting, the confusion they'd so carefully cultivated, burned away instantly, replaced by absolute glacial clarity. They thought they were clever, using modern psychological tricks, leveraging technology, exploiting emotional bonds, covering their tracks with feigned concern. They were amateurs, playing with tactical nukes, unaware they were standing directly on ground zero, facing someone who understood the fallout patterns intimately. My historical knowledge wasn't just academic theory gathering dust on shelves. It was practical, applicable. I knew how regimes were undermined from within, how spies operated under deep cover, how misinformation campaigns were constructed, disseminated, and, crucially, dismantled, how reputations were destroyed, how evidence was planted, how traps were sprung. They wanted to erase me, annihilate my identity. I would rewrite their narrative, with prejudice, permanently, etching their betrayal into the historical record they so desperately wanted to manipulate. Victoria here again. Just for a moment, can you feel that shift, that palpable, chilling transformation from bewildered victim to cold, calculating strategist? Agnes wasn't just angry, she was weaponizing her anger, sharpening it on the whetstone of her unique expertise. It's terrifying, breathtaking, and undeniably exhilarating, isn't it? This is where the story pivots, where the student of manipulation becomes the chillingly effective master, where the prey reveals she's been the predator all along. If you're finding this as gripping, as intense as I am, do me a favor, hit that like button, let me know you're here, processing this with me, because the next part, the meticulous execution of her plan, the sheer strategic brilliance, it's something else entirely. You need to stick around for this. All right, back to Agnes, the moment her fury crystallized into a diamond-hard plan. My first move was silence and meticulous observation, enhanced observation. I played the part they had cast me in, the slightly confused, increasingly frail aunt, nodding vaguely when they spoke, seeming to accept their explanations, their control, their rewritten versions of reality. I even forgot things occasionally, reinforcing their narrative, lulling them into a deeper sense of security, overconfidence, their greatest vulnerability. Inside, I was a whirlwind of focused activity, but invisible activity, conducted in the margins, in the dead of night, using skills I hadn't consciously employed in years, tradecraft learned not from spy novels but from analyzing declassified intelligence archives, compartmentalization, misdirection, counter-surveillance. My home, the place they sought to control, became my operations center, their carefully constructed prison, though they remained blissfully unaware, walking the cell block thinking they held the keys. I needed allies, trusted allies, carefully chosen, untouchable by Julian and Seraphina's sphere of influence, people whose integrity was beyond question, and whose skills complemented my own. First, Professor Alastair Finch, my oldest colleague, emeritus professor now but sharp as a tack, fiercely loyal, possessed of a deep, abiding contempt for academic fraud and intellectual dishonesty. He'd known me for 40 years, knew my work, knew my mind. I arranged to meet him discreetly, at a dusty antiquarian bookshop across town. Far from any place Julian might track, I laid out the basics, the theft, the gaslighting. The plan for the incompetence declaration. He was initially stunned into silence, then horrified, then his face hardened into familiar, grim determination. "Agnes," he said, his voice like gravel shifting, "these parasitic vipers, we'll expose them, utterly." He became my link to the academic world, my eyes and ears. Second, my grandniece Zara, young, early 30s, exceptionally tech-savvy, head of cybersecurity for a major financial institution, sharp, pragmatic, and fiercely protective of me. She adored me from childhood visits filled with stories and historical artifacts, but barely knew Julian, had met Seraphina only once or twice, saw them as distant relations. Perfect. I contacted her using a method I knew she'd recognize from our shared love of cryptography puzzles, an encrypted message hidden within a seemingly innocuous email about family history, explaining the digital theft, the manuscript duplication, the potential for forged documents online, the spyware they'd likely installed. Zara was initially shocked, incredulous. Then, as I carefully fed her verifiable proof, network logs I'd managed to pull myself using old command line skills, discrepancies she could check, her disbelief turned to cold professional fury. "Aunt Ellie, they wouldn't *dare." Then a shift in tone. Okay, game on, let's map their digital footprint, and then let's burn it to the virtual ground. She became my digital shield and sword. They thought they controlled my communication, my computer, my home network. Julian, with his moderate tech skills, had indeed installed basic monitoring software, tracked my browsing history, logged my calls made from the landline. Amateurs dealing with yesterday's technology and assuming I was digitally illiterate. I reverted to older methods, burner phones, paid for in cash, used sparingly, encrypted messaging apps running on secure operating systems Zara helped me install on a wiped laptop I kept hidden, public Wi-Fi networks accessed miles from home, disguised as trips to the library or grocery store. I even resurrected old-school dead drops with Alistair when digital communication felt too risky. Exchanging encrypted USB drives hidden within borrowed library books, tucked into specific pages we'd agreed upon, just like the methods detailed in the Cold War files I knew so well. Zara, working remotely and under deep cover, accessed my home network, effortlessly bypassed Julian's clumsy spyware, identified his backdoors. She created hidden, encrypted partitions on my main computer. Invisible to him, she began meticulously documenting their digital activities, recovered deleted files showing the progression of the manuscript theft, found scans of my private financial documents stored carelessly on Julian's cloud drive, tracked their attempts to access my secure online banking portals, found Serafina's early drafts embedding my work. She documented everything, time-stamped everything, creating an unshakable, verifiable digital trail of their actions, securely backed up to multiple off-site encrypted servers, completely beyond their reach or awareness. While they thought I was napping in my armchair or watching gardening shows, I was working, meticulously, methodically, weaving my web. I started feeding them misinformation, subtle, plausible, designed specifically to prey on their known weaknesses, their greed, their arrogance, their academic insecurities. I accidentally let slip mentions, during carefully staged moments of seeming confusion, of a fictitious, extremely valuable historical artifact, a supposed lost diary of a notorious WWI spy, something I'd supposedly rediscovered amongst my late husband Arthur's papers, hidden somewhere only I knew the location of, somewhere in the house. I watched their eyes light up, their poorly concealed avarice, their sudden renewed interest in searching my cluttered basement. My overstuffed attic, a perfect wild goose chase, keeping them occupied, distracted, and observed. I'd already installed tiny nigh-invisible cameras, purchased online, delivered to a secure drop point, capturing their increasingly frantic searches, recording their frustrated whispers, their arguments about where the fictitious diary might be, more evidence of their true motivations. I knew Julian was scheduled to present the keynote address at a major international historical conference in 3 months, a huge coup for an early career academic, an opportunity that could launch his reputation, built, I now realized with sickening certainty, entirely on my stolen research, my unpublished work on the psychological impact of 20th century visual propaganda. This conference, this public stage, this would be my theatre of operations, my moment of revelation, my carefully orchestrated counterattack. Professor Finch used his considerable influence within the Historical Society, his network of contacts built over decades. He discreetly secured me a last-minute speaking slot, right after the keynote, billed vaguely as a special presentation on newly discovered archival materials and methodological considerations, intriguing enough to draw interest, ambiguous enough not to raise Julian's suspicions, scheduled immediately after his moment of triumph. To maximize the impact, the whiplash. While Julian and Serafina feverishly refined my research for his presentation, Serafina feeding him analyses, Julian practicing his delivery, both believing I was oblivious, lost in my supposed cognitive fog, I was preparing my counter-offensive, my own presentation. With Zara's technical expertise, I created a digital dossier, a devastating compilation of irrefutable evidence, scans of my original handwritten dated notes, pages filled with my distinctive annotations and corrections, contrasted directly with their digitized, plagiarized copies, time-stamped file creation data showing their asterisk unauthorized access and modification dates, financial records meticulously traced by Zara, showing the clear siphoning of funds, the unauthorized transfers, leading directly to newly opened accounts in their names, audio snippets captured by the hidden microphones, recording their plotting, their discussions about my declining state, their plans for selling off parts of my collection, video footage of them searching fruitlessly, greedily for the non-existent spy diary, clear evidence of the forged signatures on financial and legal documents, analyzed by a forensic document expert Alistair New. The emails asterisk they sent to Dr. Evans, detailing their fabricated concerns about my mental state, urging him to expedite an evaluation, painting a picture of urgent decline. But simple exposure, revealing the theft and fraud, wasn't enough. It wouldn't address the core violation. They tried to destroy my credibility, my mind, my professional standing. I would dismantle theirs, piece by painstaking piece, using their own tools, psychological manipulation, exploiting their weaknesses. I knew Serafina, beneath her polished ambition, was deeply insecure, desperate for academic validation, and fiercely, almost pathologically possessive of Julian. Jealousy was her Achilles heel. Using anonymous, encrypted email accounts and routed through multiple VPNs, I started seeding doubts, carefully crafted poison darts. I sent Serafina an anonymous tip, formatted like academic gossip, hinting that Julian was collaborating closely, perhaps *2 closely, with another young, attractive female academic, sharing her brilliant research findings. Playing directly on her deepest insecurities, feeding her paranoia, suggesting he might sideline her once he achieved success, I watched through my hidden cameras as the atmosphere between them grew increasingly tense, their arguments becoming more frequent, more bitter, their united front starting to show visible cracks, stress impacting their focus, their judgment. For Julian, I focused on his Achilles heel, his rampant arrogance, his desperate craving for recognition and status. I arranged for an anonymous admirer, supposedly a senior fellow at a prestigious European institute, to contact him via email, praising his groundbreaking insights, hinting at a lucrative, game-changing fellowship opportunity, but only if his upcoming conference presentation was truly spectacular, truly original, pushing him, flattering him, encouraging him to be bolder, more reckless, to incorporate even more of my most unique unpublished findings into his keynote, making his inevitable public fall from grace even harder, even more humiliating, ensuring he claimed my most distinctive work as his own, in front of the entire historical community. Simultaneously, Professor Finch began his subtle groundwork, reaching out discreetly to key figures in the Historical Society, the conference organizers, senior academics he trusted implicitly, respected journal editors, not revealing the full picture yet, but raising gentle concerns, whispering about potential provenance issues and methodological discrepancies surrounding certain upcoming presentations, planting seeds of doubt about Julian's suspiciously rapid rise. His sudden mastery of complex subjects outside his previous work, priming the audience, creating an undercurrent of scrutiny. The final piece, the most urgent tactical necessity, was securing my collection. They hadn't managed to sell anything truly significant yet, too focused on finalizing the digitization, consolidating financial control, and laying the groundwork for the incompetence ruling, but they were getting close. I'd overheard them discussing contacting specific dealers, high-end, discreet dealers known to handle sensitive provenances. Zara monitoring their communications, intercepted draft emails, recorded fragments of encrypted calls where they discussed potential valuations, more concrete evidence for the dossier, but I couldn't risk them moving first. I needed to secure the most valuable, the most irreplaceable items, immediately, before they could act, before they realized the net was closing. Under the guise of needing urgent specialist repairs for a sudden, fictitious, leaky pipe, threatening the climate control in the main archive room downstairs, a scenario designed to require external contractors and temporary removal of sensitive materials, I arranged for specialist art handlers, discreet professionals thoroughly vetted by Alastair Finch, known for their work with museums and secure archives, to carefully pack and move the most critical manuscripts, the rarest pamphlets, the most sensitive correspondence, to a secure, climate-controlled university vault arranged by Alastair, all while Julian and Serafina were conveniently lured away from the house for several hours, chasing another expertly crafted false lead about the fictitious spy diary, a supposed sighting of a relevant antique box at an auction house across the city. They returned late in the afternoon, to find the archive room slightly rearranged. Smelling faintly of plumber's sealant, completely unaware that the crown jewels of the collection, the heart of my legacy, were already gone, safe, secure, beyond their reach. 3 months, it felt like an eternity, playing the part, maintaining the facade, and simultaneously, like a heartbeat, orchestrating their downfall. It required every ounce of discipline, every lesson learned from history's great deceivers, its strategic masters, and its righteous defenders. The tension was immense, the risk of discovery constant, but the cold fire of my anger burned steady, illuminating the path forward. The day of the conference arrived, a prestigious event held in a grand university hall. Julian was beaming, preening, holding court near the registration desk, accepting congratulations on his keynote slot. Serafina beside him, forcing a smile, the cracks in their relationship showing in the tense set of her shoulders, the darting glances she threw his way, despite their public facade of unity. My anonymous seeds of discord had clearly taken root. I arrived quietly, supported on the arm of Professor Finch, looking, exactly as they expected me to look, slightly frail, a bit lost in the bustling crowd, perhaps a touch confused by the noise and lights. I even allowed myself a slight tremor in my hand as I accepted a program, reinforcing their narrative one last time. We took seats near the back, waiting, observing. Julian delivered his keynote address. He strode confidently to the podium. The lights gleamed off his perfectly styled hair. He launched into his presentation. Propaganda's shadow, effective resonance in 20th century statecraft. It was, technically brilliant, eloquently presented, masterfully structured, and utterly despicably stolen. Every key insight, every novel connection, every pivotal example, was mine. I watched him present my asterisk theories, my asterisk discoveries, my carefully crafted phrases, the unique terminology I had coined, the culmination of my entire professional life, attributed to him, presented as his genius. The applause at the end was loud, sustained. He soaked it in, smiled that charming, triumphant smile, looking out at the sea of respected faces. His eyes briefly scanned the room, met mine for a fraction of a second, a flicker of, what, pity, contempt, annoyance at my presence, hard to say. He quickly looked away, dismissing me, irrelevant, a ghost at his feast. Then, after a short break, it was my turn, announced by the moderator, and now a special presentation by Professor Emerita Agnes Marlowe on newly discovered archival materials and methodological considerations. Professor Finch escorted me slowly, carefully, to the podium, adjusted the microphone for me, gave my arm a reassuring squeeze. His eyes met mine, conveying grim satisfaction. Showtime. I looked out at the sea of faces, colleagues I'd known for decades, former students, eager young scholars, the very people whose respect Julian craved, whose judgment he ultimately feared. Serafina watched from the front row, pale and tense. Julian sat beside her, looking relaxed now, basking in the afterglow, probably expecting me to ramble incoherently. My voice, when I spoke, was not the frail, hesitant whisper they expected, nor the slightly confused tone I'd adopted for months. It was clear, strong, steady, resonant, amplified by the microphone, filling the large hall, commanding attention. "Good afternoon," I began, my eyes scanning the room, making contact. For more than 40 years, I have dedicated my life to studying the art of deception, how individuals, organizations, and states utilize propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and sophisticated psychological manipulation to achieve their aims, how they skillfully rewrite narratives, steal legacies, erase inconvenient truths, control perception. A different kind of hush fell over the room now, an expectant silence, tinged with curiosity. This wasn't the rambling people might have expected. Today, I had originally planned to present newly discovered materials concerning psychological operations during the early Cold War period. However, recent, profoundly personal events compel me to share a different, more immediate, and far more disturbing case study. I saw Julian shift in his seat, his relaxed posture stiffening slightly. A flicker of unease, confusion, crossed his face. Serafina went white as a sheet, her eyes fixed on me with dawning horror. "A case study," I continued, my voice dropping slightly, drawing the audience closer, "involving systematic intellectual property theft on a grand scale, calculated gaslighting designed to induce cognitive self-doubt, extensive financial fraud, identity theft, and a concerted, malicious attempt at elder exploitation and forced legal incapacitation, orchestrated under the cynical guise of familial concern." My gaze swept the room, paused, then landed directly, deliberately, on Julian and Serafina, pinning them in the spotlight of my words. The primary perpetrator of the academic theft, the wholesale plagiarism, is in fact in this room today. The research presented just moments ago in the keynote address, hailed as groundbreaking, original work, is in fact mine *, developed over 2 decades, systematically stolen from my private files, digitized without permission, and deliberately plagiarized by my nephew Julian Vance with the active complicity of his partner Serafina Dubois. Gasps rippled through the audience, murmurs erupted, people turned in their seats, staring openly at Julian and Serafina. Julian's face was frozen, a mask of stunned disbelief, rapidly crumbling into sheer panic. Serafina looked like she might faint. "But the theft of my life's research," I pressed on, my voice ringing with cold precision, "was only one facet of a larger, more insidious campaign, a campaign designed to strip me of my assets, my autonomy, and ultimately my identity." And then I laid it all out, calmly, methodically, relentlessly, point by damning point. The systematic gaslighting, the manufactured incidents of forgetfulness, the isolation tactics, the interception of mail and calls, the forged documents, the unauthorized financial transfers, the siphoned funds, the manipulation of Dr. Evans, the carefully constructed narrative of my decline, the plan to have me declared legally incompetent, institutionalized if necessary. With each devastating revelation, I calmly directed the AV technician, Zara's unseen hand guiding them remotely from afar, to project the corroborating evidence onto the large screen dominating the stage behind me. My original dated handwritten notes projected side by side with slides from Julian's keynote presentation, highlighting the verbatim plagiarism, entire paragraphs lifted, my unique diagrams replicated. Financial records, bank statements, transfer logs, clearly showing the unexplained movement of funds, leading directly to accounts opened by Julian and Serafina just months prior. Audio clips, their own voices, captured by the hidden microphones, crisp and clear in the silent hall, discussing my supposed cognitive decline, plotting the sale of specific items from my collection, arguing about managing my finances once I was incapacitated. Serafina's own frantic, angry emails to Julian, fueled by the anonymous tips I had sent, accusing him of betraying her, revealing incriminating details of their scheme in her jealous rage, projected for all to read. Video footage, grainy but clear, Julian and Serafina searching my basement frantically, their greedy frustration palpable, hunting for the non-existent spy diary, undeniable proof of their exploitative motivations. The email's asterisk they sent to Dr. Evans, outlining their fabricated concerns, requesting formal evaluations, using language designed to pathologize my normal behavior. It was devastating, irrefutable, overwhelming, a meticulous, digital, public dissection of their betrayal, layer by layer, lie by lie, exposed under the harsh glare of the conference lights. Serafina started sobbing, loudly, uncontrollably, head in her hands. Julian sat rigid, white as death, eyes wide with terror, trapped, exposed, utterly destroyed in front of the very community he desperately sought to impress. I concluded, my voice ringing with cold, hard clarity, power reclaimed. They sought to erase my history, my identity, my contribution, my legacy, based on the arrogant, ageist assumption that age inevitably equals infirmity, that quiet scholarship signifies weakness, that kindness is an invitation to exploit. They were profoundly, catastrophically, wrong. I looked directly at Julian. His eyes met mine, filled with terror and hatred. You studied history, nephew, but you clearly didn't learn its most important lesson. Underestimate your opponent, especially one who intimately understands the weapons of your chosen battlefield, at your own extreme peril. Silence, utter, stunned, protracted, silence, the weight of the revelations hung heavy in the air. Then chaos. Academics shouting questions, denunciations, conference organizers rushing towards the stage, university security personnel appearing, moving purposefully towards Julian and Serafina. Phones were out, recording, the scandal exploding in real time. Professor Finch stood beside me, a protective, solid presence, his face grim, but radiating a fierce, undeniable satisfaction, justice, served cold. The fallout was immediate, nuclear, and brutally efficient. Julian and Serafina were escorted out of the hall, amidst a torrent of audible condemnation, shouts of fraud, thief, disgrace, their academic careers instantly incinerated, their reputations shredded beyond any possibility of repair, blacklisted, finished. The Historical Society launched a formal investigation immediately, but the evidence presented was already overwhelming, indisputable. Legal action followed swiftly. Alistair had alerted my lawyers beforehand. They were prepared, armed with Zara's meticulously compiled digital dossier and the forensic analysis. Charges were filed rapidly: fraud, grand larceny, forgery, conspiracy, elder abuse, theft of intellectual property. The evidence was airtight. The public nature of the exposure made denial impossible. Their cynical attempt to have me declared incompetent, dismissed by the court with prejudice, exposed as a malicious fabrication, swiftly replaced by permanent restraining orders, legally barring them from ever contacting me, approaching my home, or accessing my work again. Dr. Evans faced a formal inquiry from the Medical Licensing Board, his professional judgment questioned, his reputation severely tarnished for his willingness to accept their narrative without due diligence, a stark warning about confirmation bias and ageism in professional practice. The dealers they had started contacting cooperated fully with the investigation, providing emails and records, desperate to distance themselves rapidly from the toxic, unfolding scandal. Julian and Serafina, facing ruin and potential prison time, turned on each other, viciously, predictably, blaming, accusing, their toxic alliance dissolving into bitter recriminations during depositions and pretrial hearings. They lost everything: their academic futures, their social standing, their financial resources, their freedom potentially forfeit. all because they tried to take everything from me. My stolen research, fully reclaimed, the manuscript, my magnum opus, was published under my name the following year, to significant critical acclaim, awarded a major prize, with a new, carefully worded preface, briefly detailing the attempted theft and its exposure, a final, public, academic, nail in their coffin, ensuring the story was permanently attached to their names in the historical record they sought to manipulate. My precious collection, secure, fully catalogued by trusted professionals, part of it now resides safely within the university's Special Collections Archive, accessible to genuine scholars under strict supervision, my legacy, protected, preserved. Did I feel pity, regret, even a shred of remorse for the totality of their destruction? No, not a single shred. They made their choices, conscious choices. They weaponized trust. They preyed on love and familial duty. They attempted to obliterate me, to erase my existence for their own gain. My response was merely proportionate, a necessary excision. What I felt, what I still feel, is vindication, a harsh, chilling, but deeply resonant satisfaction, the cold, clean certainty of justice delivered, not just by the slow, sometimes uncertain wheels of the legal system, but by decisive strategic action, by turning their own sophisticated manipulative tactics back on them, tenfold, with devastating precision. I reclaimed my life, my work, my mind, my voice. They underestimated Professor Agnes Marlowe. They mistook the quiet historian for an easy target. They paid the price, a price calculated with the cold logic they themselves employed. Life is quieter now, peaceful, but it's asterisk my quiet, earned, defended, filled with genuine friends, respected colleagues, the joy of mentoring bright asterisk ethical asterisk young scholars, and the enduring power of my work. I am warier now, yes, that scar remains, but I am stronger, unbowed, my mind, honed by the ordeal, perhaps sharper than ever, forged in a fire they ignited, and ultimately were consumed by. They tried to erase me, instead, inadvertently made my legacy indelible, a testament, not just to historical analysis and the intricacies of propaganda, but to resilience, survival, and the fierce, unexpected, devastating power of righteous fury channeled into cold, hard strategy. They became a footnote in my story, a cautionary tale. Wow, just wow, Victoria again, catching my breath here. Agnes's story, it just leaves you breathless, doesn't it? The sheer audacity of the betrayal, the calculated, intimate cruelty, the violation on so many levels, and then the response, so methodical, so strategic, so utterly, chillingly devastating. She didn't just seek justice through conventional channels, she orchestrated their downfall, using her unique skills, her lifetime of specialized knowledge, turning the tables with a precision that is both terrifying in its effectiveness and, let's be honest, deeply, profoundly satisfying to witness, even second-hand. Was it harsh? Absolutely, unquestionably. Was it necessary, given the depth of their conspiracy, their attempt to steal her mind, her legacy, erase her very identity? Perhaps it was the only language they were capable of understanding, the only deterrent that could truly neutralize the threat they posed. What do you think? Where do you stand on this? Was Agnes's response justified self-defense, a necessary act of reclaiming her life, or did it cross a line into pure, cold vengeance? Where is that line? Does the nature of the attack dictate the nature of the defense? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I truly want to hear what you think about this one. It raises so many complex questions. And if stories like Agnes's, stories of profound resilience, of unexpected strength, of fighting back against overwhelming odds using intellect and strategy, resonate with you, if they make you think, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell, because I promise you there are more unforgettable narratives coming your way, stories that explore the best and sometimes the worst of human nature. Thank you for listening, really listening, for sharing this space and engaging with these complex stories. I'm Victoria, and I'll share another story with you very soon. Be well, Stay safe and maybe, just maybe, keep a closer eye on who you trust. You never truly know what quiet strength, what hidden fire, or what chilling strategic brilliance resides behind a calm, unassuming exterior.